Most people believe that they need clarity in order to create the life they truly want. But clarity alone does not create change. What actually shifts your life is understanding how you are wired, energetically especially, and learning how to work with that wiring instead of against it, like most of us are taught. Today's conversation is about self discovery beyond labels, mindset, and into the energetic architecture that shapes your decisions, relationships, and sense of purpose. Welcome back to the Expansion Room. This is the space where inner work meets impact. I'm your host and psycho-spiritual, and sometimes psychedelic guide, Shervon Laurice. And today I am joined by Dr. Eleanor Haspel Portner, whose work sits at the intersection of psychology, neuroscience, and quantum energy science, and the ancient wisdom traditions. She recently read my astrological chart using the Four Worlds framework, and what emerged was not just insight, but a deeper understanding how my own energetic patterns shape my own life. Eleanor, welcome. I'm happy to see you
Thank you.
today.
I'm happy to be here with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's just jump right in. So many people are deeply committed to their growth right now, right? Self help is like all the rage. So a lot of people are in therapy, doing all the things. And they're doing a lot of mind work, right? Mindset work, and coming to a lot of understandings about themselves and gaining insight. Yet something still feels misaligned or stuck for a lot of people. So, why do you think people can know themselves cognitively but still feel stuck?
Well, that brings us right to my four world framework because we actually are spiritual beings living in an incarnated life. And the Tree of Life tells us that. It says, when you come into a body, you are here to remember that you're more than just a physical form, a physical being. You are a spirit. And what I've found in more than 50 years of being a clinician is that every person who ever came to me for therapy came because nobody had listened to their soul.
Mm.
And the pain was that they weren't heard. And they just wanted somebody to perceive who they were, to acknowledge it, and to not ask them to go against themselves. So when we speak about clarity, it's quite important to have clarity about our direction, about our goals, but most importantly, I think, it's about knowing who we are, knowing how we perceive energy.
Mm.
And so many people who I work with have intuition. They know what they know. My famous line to all my clients is, when you know what you know, and nobody can tell you you don't know, you're not selfish, you're not stubborn, you're not broken, you are aligned to yourself. And we've learned in psychology to do X, do a Y, pay attention, achieve. It's all out there.
Yeah.
And we need to ask what's in here. What do we want? What do we resonate with? What feels congruent to our energetic frequency?
Yeah.
And that, so many people, especially when I'm doing readings for people, and I look at their noble energy map, which shows me how they are designed in all four worlds, and how those worlds come together over the first 3 months of life, which is where the natural physiology, genetics of us come together with the cosmic impact and the people around us. And we, as babies, interact and learn to be ourselves. So you have children, you know that at 3 months of age, if a baby doesn't reach for an object and smile at somebody, you worry.
Right.
You think, what's wrong with my baby? Because at 3 months of age, a baby makes choices. They reach for an object. They show preferences for some things over other things. It may be a blanket that they like to have covering them rather than something that's a rougher texture.
Yeah.
But what so many people don't realize is how energy sensitive they are to the energy of people around them.
Yeah.
And they can pick up energy and not know it doesn't belong to them. So then, if you're in somebody's presence and you're picking up their energy, how do you get clarity for yourself?
Exactly.
Hard. You have to be really tuning into yourself and saying, you know, is this right for me? Is this my energy?
Right.
And sometimes, and for some people, it's trickier than for other people.
Yeah. And I would imagine, depending on the environment that that baby is in, it could compound that trickiness.
And the school, the nursery, the daycare, who are the people taking care of the child? How well do they listen to the heart and the soul of that child? When, you know, we hear about the terrible twos. Well, now when I think about terrible twos, I think about, wait a minute, who's being listened to here?
Right.
You know, should we maybe listen to the child and say, what do you want? How can I serve you so you feel complete instead of serving me so I'm not stressed?
Yeah. That would
So
be a flip.
well, you know, when I think back to what my own trajectory was in terms of consciousness, my children are 11 months apart by
Okay.
design. And so by the time my son was 2 years old, I had a PhD. And I studied with some of the best child psychologists in the world. And here's my child having temper tantrums or wanting something and not being happy when he didn't get it. And I didn't know what to do. And I was very committed to bringing my children up in line with their soul. And so I started studying. And I learned that communication is world specific. So if we want to talk to the soul, we need to use language of the soul. And if we want to use the mental waking world, we want to use practical, day-to-day, conscious communication. But we need to teach children, teach parents how to communicate in the appropriate energy to where the person is. And that's, you're a therapist, you know how tricky that can be.
Indeed. Indeed. That takes self-awareness on the parents' part going forward. For sure.
Well, as a clinician in practice for over 50 years, my search began with my children, but it
Absolutely.
continued with my clients because I found that when I was working with couples, for example, they couldn't talk to each other using mental world language. They needed to get into their soul and listen to the soul of their mate,
Yeah.
or they weren't going to have a marriage that lasted.
And doesn't that make
So,
sense?
so understanding that psychology has been at fault in not teaching people the variety of communication skills so that they can be flexible and move between goal orientation and success in the world, and then come into themselves and make sure that what they're doing is really right for them. That's clarity.
Indeed. Thank you. Yeah. And simply put, what are the other two of the four worlds?
Worlds. Well, I mentioned mental waking. That's our daily life. I've mentioned the soul and spirit. That's who we are at the deepest part of our soul, of who we know ourselves to be. When we say I, who do we refer to? And who do we want recognized?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the physical biological world. And what's so interesting is that the mental waking world and the physical biological world are the only two worlds that have a solar plexus, that get triggered emotionally.
Okay.
And I say, when we have a lie detector test, what's it measuring? It's measuring galvanic skin response. It's measuring nuances of physiological measurements, blood pressure, heart rate, etc. That is beneath consciousness, but the body is responding emotionally. So the emotional world and the mental waking world are the worlds of our daily life. If we're in our spirit, we're not emotional. We're at one. We're in our divine being. The emotional angelic world, and I labeled it that way because it's the world of intuition. It's the world of emotional intelligence and creative intelligence, of higher compassion and love, where you're not reactive, but you're taking your emotions and you're able to move them into a transformative compassion, where you understand when somebody else is emotionally reactive that your job as a spirit is to heal them. And it's not healing in the way we think about, well, I'm a healer, I can do anything. And
Right.
no, it's human being to human being saying, if you're emotionally reactive, you're hurting. What can I do to make it right for you? Think about how kind the world we would be if every time somebody was upset, somebody came in and said, how can I make it better for you? So those are the four worlds. And what I learned as a clinician, studying system after system after system to try to figure out why therapy worked with one person and not another person,
Hmm.
or a problem that seemed so simple to solve for one person held on for dear life in somebody else, or
Okay.
why couldn't couples talk to each other. The communication is state specific.
Okay.
So if you're talking to me in the mental language and I'm talking to you in a spiritual language, we're going like this.
That is making sense. Yeah. Thank
So
you. Hmm.
I'm all about teaching people to live from their soul because that's where true clarity and happiness come from.
Yeah. And so in our modern times, people are oftentimes caught up in chasing the next thing, right? Chasing a goal, chasing a relationship, chasing something. So, how do people shift and start to
They
live from their soul?
Well, the first step is knowing that there are four worlds and that psychology has left out spirit and has left out the soul and has also not adequately described emotional reactivity as needing to transform in order for the inner self to feel at ease and rested and peaceful. So I think that it's a two-pronged problem. One is that professionals need to be educated, that we live in four worlds, and that communication is world specific. And also that we need to start teaching children who they really are. They're not somebody who needs to be told who they are. They know who they are from the time they're born.
Yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. My dog is barking. I think my husband just came in with the other dog. So if we back up a minute and say, okay, let's really listen to the children.
Yeah.
You know, what are we doing to them? Who are we telling them to be rather than letting them tell us who they are?
Right. Yeah.
Now, let's not put them in a box. Let's not give them a program, one size fits all. They're individuals. I know when I was growing up, I remember looking up, I was the youngest of five. So three of my siblings were considerably older than me, and then the next sibling was 2.5 years older. And I remember looking up, especially to my brother, who was 16 years older than me, and saying, "Why are you doing this to me? I would never do this to anyone." And he would tease me, he would chase me, he would tell me not to put my feet up on the chair. He wasn't letting me be me. And fortunately, I was fiery enough that I said, I'm not going to do that. F you, you know. And I caught a lot of hassle, but I stood up for myself. But my sister, who was just older than me, didn't. And when we talk now and we talk about our childhood, you'd think we grew up in completely different homes with completely different parents. Because I was a fighter and she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so, I wish, if we had it to go back and do over again, I wish my parents would have seen the difference between us more and have taken more time, because she needed more time than I did.
Okay.
She needed to be coddled and encouraged. We both had learning issues. I had visual issues and auditory sequencing issues. So many of my clients have had visual issues or learning issues that were never addressed. And I highly recommend that all parents take their 5-year-old to a developmental optometrist and find out if your child has visual, auditory sequencing issues, learning issues that can be fixed.
Okay.
I was so compulsive that I compensated. I studied and I studied and I studied and I read the books and I did the work. My sister did. So she always felt like she wasn't smart enough because she had learning issues. So, it's the fault of the adults, not the fault of the child.
Right.
And we as adults need to change the way we look at children and the way we parent children. And we need to be attentive to their soul. And what does that soul need? Not as what's the mind need. What does their soul need?
Yeah. That's such a valuable question. It would shift even how, if the parent could ask that question on a regular basis, it would shift even how they interact with their children.
I brought my kids up according to their soul because my first memory is of seeing auras. And I didn't know that. But I knew my kids saw auras, so I never conditioned it out.
Okay.
And when my son got into high school, he was in a very good private school, and he never studied. And he didn't have a lot of extracurricular. And so at one point I said to him, I'm really worried about you because you have no extracurricular. I want you to get into a good college. And how do you expect to do that? And he said, I don't want you to worry. I said, tell me, how am I not going to worry when I don't see you doing the things I'm told you should be doing? And he said, I'll make a deal with you. If you should worry, I'll tell you. I said, okay. I'm off your case. You do it your own way. And if I need to worry, you'll come and you'll tell me. We'd have a deal? Yes. I let him be. Junior year of high school, he came to me and he said, you need to worry. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to come talk to my teacher. She doesn't like me. And I do my best in my class, and there's nothing I can do that she likes about what I do. And I don't know what to do about it. So I said, okay. So I went in, and I met with the teacher and my son, and we had I don't even remember what we talked about, but it was resolved. He told me I didn't need to worry anymore. He got A's in her class after that. He got into Brown early admission.
Okay, well, there we go.
So I trusted him. And the reason I'm telling this story is because as a parent, we need to talk to our children. And if they want to be trusted, Give them the chance. Don't distrust them when they say, trust me, but tell them what your breaking point is. Because it's a two-way relationship. So I always treated my children as equals. Because on a soul level, we're equal. It's only from a chronological age and a mental world age that we're not equal. But in the eyes of God, we're equal. So
Here we go. And as parents, I guess taught or told energetically that we're supposed to force outcomes, right? Kids are supposed to behave a certain way, do a certain thing, and we don't always look at who they are first.
and we need to.
Yeah.
If we want our children to be creative, innovative, unique, smart, we have to trust them.
There we go. And so, where does embodiment fall or fit in to the Four Noble Worlds, right? The four worlds that you've kind of
I would
outlined.
say it. I would say it manifests through the emotional angelic world.
Okay.
That I'm a meditator. I've been doing transcendental meditation since 1974, every day. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said, he called it the science of creative intelligence. And he talked about creative intelligence. Now, we talk about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is really creative intelligence. It's taking the mental waking, physical, biological reactions of our day-to-day life and taking them to a higher frequency of understanding, analysis, and energy. So while we may... Recently, I've been writing a mission statement for myself. And it's a good example because I've written and I've written and I've written, and they weren't right. They just weren't speaking to me. And then yesterday, I wrote one out, and I went, yeah, this is it.
Okay.
So when we have that inner feeling of peace, of joy, of recognition that there's an alignment within the self, that's who we are. And that's what we can stand on. And that's what we can be proud of. And that should exist every day in our life if we're living in accord with who we really are.
There we go. And that's what
I've
transformation really is, right? Coming home to exactly who you really are. Not that you're creating something new out of nowhere. It's coming back home to who you are, becoming the person you were always meant to be.
and not compromising.
Yeah.
You know, I've only had two jobs in my life. I taught college for 3 years, two different places. And at the end of my third year teaching, I quit. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't teach people to get a PhD so they can teach people to get a PhD. I said, I need to teach people how to live a quality life that feeds their soul. And so I went back, got my postdoc, and got my license, and never looked back. And I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do. And all of us deserve to love what we do. So if you're listening and you don't love what you do, what do you love? And how can you get there? And how can you do that in your life? Because at the end of your life, you want to look back and say, I love my life. That's clarity.
Indeed. That's beautiful and well said, indeed. That is so, in our changing landscape of our world right now, that is, I think, a valuable question, because people are losing their jobs, losing employment left and right, and so often, instead of taking the pause, people feel so stressed that they have to find another job immediately, rather than pausing to ask themselves, what do I love? What do I really want to be doing in the world?
Mm-hmm. When you do your psychedelic therapy,
Yeah,
that is opening people to their soul.
absolutely. I've had people come out of that therapy, that type of therapy, knowing what business they wanted to start, knowing what degree and where they wanted to go do that degree. People come out of those experiences very often with greater clarity.
Because they let the boundaries of the world
Mm,
disappear.
yep, they
And
fall.
suddenly all they're in is who they are. And they then, in that situation, which is a no-risk situation,
Right.
they can say the truth of what they want. Wouldn't it be nice if we gave everyone permission?
Exactly. And how about give ourselves permission,
Mm-hmm.
right? And stop waiting on others to say it's okay to do
Right.
whatever it is, or for you to be exactly who you are. Give
And
ourselves.
now, there's real world conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We have to earn a living. We have to have a place to live. So compartmentalize the worlds. Don't let one world contaminate another.
Okay.
If you're in a job and you have to work your job, okay, so do that. But then take time every day to be with yourself, to ask yourself, where do I want to be in 5 years, or 2 years, or 1 year, or 3 months? Now, let me add that in the mental waking world, based on my scientific data on 45,000 cases, manifestation is a 3-month process. 6 months from the unconscious inception to the manifestation in form. During that 6-month period, and once you're aware, you have time to correct your course. So imagine you have a map and you think you know where you're going, and suddenly there's traffic. Do you stick with that route, or are you flexible enough to say, let me see if there's a better route that will get me to my destination faster? So don't be locked in. If it's not working for you, change.
For some people, change is a scary word, but that is the best way that we can discover who we are and what we want. We have to be willing to change. We have to be willing to do something different.
One little thing at a time.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. What is a simple practice our audience can begin using to observe their inner world in this way?
May I take your audience into a meditation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, for the listeners, find a comfortable place where you can be internal, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with each inhalation, feel the divine energy of clarity come through the crown of your head. And as that energy moves through your body, allow the release of anything that feels misaligned with you. And what's left is full alignment of energy, beautifully moving through your body in a very divine, pure way, telling you who you are and giving you a sense, just a sense, of your own frequency, of the brilliance of your inner being, filled with light and inspiration and knowing. As you breathe, you know what you know. I call it knowing with a K. And when you know what you know, remember who that knower is. And how you know when you know. The feeling in your body, the openness in your heart, the smile throughout every cell of your being as it relaxes and releases any stress of the outside world. After all, you're a biologic, energetic being, an energy body, a frequency of purity, a frequency of love. You came into the world on love, and you live in the world, seeking and knowing when love touches your heart. And love is there for you all the time. Anytime you want to touch into yourself and acknowledge the love you have for who you are. And after all, we all hold on to who we are. And that means we love ourselves so deeply that we're not willing to compromise the core of who we are for anyone or anything outside of ourselves. Have the courage to be visible, to stand up for that loving being you really are, and to attract the other energetic beings who align with you congruently, who recognize you and who know you. Most of all, know yourself. Take a moment and just be. I'll be silent and give you a moment to just be. And as you come back into your body, into your boundedness of the mental waking world, recognize that you bring with you this divine self who knows what you know and can begin to own your true essence fully, with clarity and determination to live in an integrated way, bringing all four worlds together as a unity within yourself, and bringing the joy of that being into existence for others to experience. What a gift you are as you bring that joyfulness, that peacefulness, and that divinity, and you bring the love of yourself to expression as you connect with other people. From this place of clarity and unity and love, come back into the waking body, wiggling your fingers and toes, feeling your boundedness. Count of 1, coming back into your body. 2, opening your eyes. 3, fully awake, alert, and ready for the rest of your day.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was perfect. I don't often get to, in the middle of my work, take a time. I usually have morning or evening. Thank you.
Well, maybe midday would be a good time to take 2 minutes
Right.
and do it.
Indeed.
Check back with yourself. You know, so many of the listeners are sensitive to the energy around them. So taking time periodically in the course of your day to just touch back inside and get a reading. Are you yourself, or did you pick up energy from outside?
Right, exactly. When I used to meet with clients in the office, I had more of a practice of doing that because I could feel that energetic exchange in that face-to-face experience. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's more distance when we're on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. Well, Eleanor, thank you. It has been a pleasure, as it has been in the past, to talk to you today. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, this idea of the four worlds that you have created and clarified. And thank you for the meditation. It's been a
You're welcome.
wonderful experience, and I'm hoping that the audience finds that as well for them. If anyone is looking to reach out to you, where's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, my website is nobleenergywellness.com, and there is a four-world assessment on there that is free. And then they can schedule a short time with me to go over it. But if you go to my website, you can also book a reading with me or find out what I'm teaching and what other things I'm doing. I'm also on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in. And if this conversation resonated with you, and I hope it did, I invite you to pause before you rush into your next decision or your next goal and allow yourself to touch inward. And as always, if this episode spoke to you, I invite you to share it with someone who you believe would benefit, and like and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube. I'll see you next time here in the expansion room.
Thank you.